Alright, now that your front part up here and in between the spars is dried, you don't want to mess with anything, so let that fully dry before you do anything else to the wing, because you want that to make sure that it's seated nice and not going to move. You're not going to break the glue beads or anything. The next step we're going to do is we're going to put a little 1/4 inch piece of ply right against the back part here to hold the tail section together. If you're using 4-foot piece, you probably don't need to do this. I'm doing this because I want extra support around, because I'm using the 2-piece system, so I want extra support in the back to hold the back together. So the best thing you can do here is actually just go right between your 2 aileron ends, because you don't want this to interfere with your airons, and just pull it back 1/8 of an inch or so, and then mark it about 1/8 of an inch or so. We're just looking for a little support piece in here, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but then you're going to want to get the center of this piece and put the center of that right on there, and then you'll have equal parts on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that and epoxy this onto the back with clamps. Alright, I'm going to cut my piece. You see you got a center line on there, so what I'm just going to do is I'm going to epoxy the piece, and I'm going to clamp it on both sides with that center line, and you're going to want to make sure it's flush. But you want to make sure that this is perfectly even and flush, and you want to make sure this is perfectly even and flush, so we don't put any warp into the wing. So basically I'm going to want to just glue the side that's going to touch here, and I will be liberal and then wipe. Alright, so I'm just going to put it on here, smear it up against it, rock it back and forth. Secure about the way this is going to glue up, so I'm not going to clamp it this way. I'm just going to clamp it up and down. I'm going to go right to the ends so I can get in here and get more glue. And again on the bottom, I'm sure there's some stuff down there. And I'll just take a Dremel to it later, and if there's any excess glue, and sand it off, sand it down flush. So I got a good bite there. I'm going to go ahead and glue up my fingers so I can check and make sure it's all level. Make sure the back is pushed together perfectly. Got no warps, we're looking good. And there we go, got the tail brace going on. Next we're going to put in the wing bolt plate. Alright, now we're going to put in your wing down, or your wing bolt plate. And this is going to be about 1 inch wide, according to the plan sheet, because you're going to have 1 inch trailing edge sheeting going over it, so it's going to cover it just about perfectly. So about 1 inch, it's at least 1 inch, let's go that way. Use a nice square corner of a 1/8 sheet of ply, and I'm just going to mark off 1 inch on there. And take my speed square and transfer that inch right up the side that I'm going to use. Now I want to use a good corner of a piece of ply, that way I only have to make 2 cuts to follow everything. So I'm just going to mark it down the sheet like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and place this up here. I need to make a longer mark apparently. And then I'm just going to do just like we did at the front part. Go ahead and mark right in between the spars. You want to go a little bit over because you don't want to end up short with this. This needs to be very snug. So I'm going to cut that out, and I'll just finish drawing the lines, I guess. Get right on the line there. Alright, so that's the piece that's going to be my wing down plate, or my bolt. The bolt goes through to hold the wing onto the aircraft, so I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to up some epoxy to put my wing bolt plate in. And now I'm just going to glue the front face of the plate and both sides where it's going to touch the ribs. You want to make sure this is very flush to the top of the spars when you put it on there. And you want to make sure it's flush with the angle of the top part of the spars. Use a good amount of glue again, so we can wipe off excess, but you want to make sure you get a good bond. I'm using epoxy. You could use CI, I suppose, if you wanted to, but this is, like I said, holding on your wing onto your plane, so I'm going to make sure it's going to hold my wing onto my plane, basically. So I'll glue it up pretty good, and then I'm going to clamp it in place and not mess with it till it completely dries. And basically this is all he's doing here. So we want to make sure it's flush right up against the back part of the spar here. And we want to make sure it follows the top part of the angle of the ribs. And this is going to sit flush against your fuselage wing bolt plate. That's why we're following the top angle of the ribs, because of the angle of the fuselage. I'm going to put that in there, and then just to make sure I got a nice big bond, everything looks good there. Seat it well to the back. And don't put too much pressure on it. You just want to make sure it's flush up against these parts and nice and square. It's also going to help hold the wing together for the two-piece system. So now I got this here. Happy with that angle, so I'll leave that there. Just going to take another clamp and just lightly push it, because you don't want to pull it out of angle because you're not square against it. So I'm just going to hold some pressure against it. That's it. Just very light pressure, just to make sure everything's staying snug up on everything. Take my finger and just wipe off the crack, make sure that I can feel a nice smooth transition to the spar. So the back part of this should be very flush with the spar. That's where your sheet is going to land up, and if one of your ribs are a little higher or something like that, don't worry about it. We'll sand it right down to the block when we get there. We're good to go here. Just let that dry fully, and all the hardware to your wing or the hard pieces to your wing are pretty much done. So it's looking good. And then you can unpin your wing from the board. What we're looking like. The whole wing is framed in. I like it. I removed it from the board. But there we go. And the next thing we're going to do is basically you're just going to take a saw, your razor blade, whatever you have. If you've used anything here, basically you're just going to take your saw, and you're going to come right flush to the inside edge here, and you're going to just cut out these triangle pieces. And that's going to give us our opening for the fuselage, and then we'll be able to set this on the wing and see where the plate is that's going to actually hold the wing dowel to attach the wing to the fuselage. You want to leave a little bit excess so you can sand this flush to the inside of the wall here. So a little sand action in here, so you just going on. And I'm just going basically right up against the former here, right against the rib, and I'm just backing it off, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch maybe. So I got the clearance of the blade. And you want to kind of cut it straight. Don't want to cut it into the angle. As you can see, this saw makes nice work of it. Oops, split that out. Great. Luckily, that's all going to be sanded away anyway. So now we got that done, and like I said, you're just going to have a little, if you did the 4-piece with the 1/4 x 4 square, like if you did this for your leading edge instead of the triangle for the leading edge, and just cut your thing. This is the triangles that I use, so I cut them out. So now I'm going to sand this flush with the side of this former, and then the wing will be ready to be put onto the fuselage to see where we're going to put our other